Welcome to MSO's first webinar of 2026, Professional Ethics, Not Just for Agents, presented by me. I am Sue Quimby, Senior Vice President and National School Director for MSO, Inc. Joining me as host is MSO CEO President Jan Seitz, providing technical assistance are Cassidy Cody and Mary Beagle. Jan would like to say a few words.
Well, first, thank you to all the attendees, and we have over 100 and counting, so that is terrific. I want to thank the MSO team and all of our great sponsors, and Sue will come back to that. But at this particular moment, I want to thank Sue. Behind the scenes, it's noteworthy that about 2.5 years ago, we decided to take our school national. And I have to say special thanks to Sue, who has brought that forward with a lot of help from teammates, of course, and a lot of behind the scenes work. But we are about to achieve our objective. We're at 41 and counting, and we're going to hit the 50 mark in 2026. And we will do what a lot of people told us we couldn't do, and we were nuts if we did do it. But now we have created something very special and very important to the industry, which is a national CE school. And this is going to be good for all of you, but it's good for the industry. And it's in recognition of the continuing education and the excellence that is in the insurance industry. We want to be part of that. But kudos to Sue, and she's in the home stretch. And this is tribute today, the fact that all of you are on here participating in this, our first session of 2026. So thanks to all of you and thanks to Sue. So Sue, I turn it back to you.
I want to clarify that I am still nuts, so don't let her tell you that I'm not. Thank you. Please take a minute to note the antitrust statement on your screen. This is exciting stuff. We will not discuss or answer questions that might address any trade secrets. Next is the disclaimer. We would certainly like to thank our generous sponsors listed on the screen and on our website. They help us provide these quality webinars each year. Annual sponsorship opportunities are available. Contact us for information. About the webinar. Professional ethics is essential to the insurance industry. This course offers an overview of the ethical principles of competence, confidentiality, diligence, fairness, integrity, and professionalism. We also review some case studies. About the presenter, well, many of you know me, but some of you don't. I am a 48-year veteran of the insurance industry. I started in an agency, and I moved to MSO Inc. in 1991. I did start my career when I was 5. I've earned various designations, and I served on the New Jersey CPCU chapter board for over 30 years. I'm also active in the International Association of Insurance Professionals on all levels. I currently serve as their international vice president. I've won numerous awards and scholarships, and I teach continuing education and professional development courses regularly. I am living currently in New Hampshire on a 275-acre farm with my husband, my dog, and my 8 chickens. So now for the webinar. Professional ethics, not just for agents. This course is based on an IAIP course of the same name, and we are very grateful that they gave us permission to file it as a CE course. A lot of members have taken that class as well. Why do we talk about ethics? Why do we care? Other than the fact that we have to be here for our licenses in many cases. Well, ethics was a study of character. It was started in ancient Greece, from the word ethos. Moral behavior exists throughout human history as social, religious, or tribal norms, but formal ethical philosophy began in ancient Greece with Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, who shifted focus from custom to rational inquiry into the good life. So I thought that was kind of an interesting side note. We're all familiar with the Gallup and Harris polls. How often do we get calls or emails or texts saying, we'd like your opinion, we'd like your opinion, we'd like your opinion? Well, they frequently do polls for asking about the most ethical professions. Do you know who the most ethical professions are? Attorney, law, bank, attorney, doctors. There we go. That's the right track. Lawyers, teachers, not sure. And where does insurance fall in the ranking? Chat over. Members of the helping professions are universally perceived as the most ethical, which I guess is important because most of them are healthcare. If you look at the list, nurses usually are number one, followed by doctors, veterinarians, pharmacists, and dentists. Where do you think insurance falls? Well, often cases, it falls back on the down on the bottom, above, just about ranked with used car salespeople. 15% of respondents typically say that the insurance is a trustworthy and ethical profession. Now, I don't know about you, but this bothers me quite a bit, given the fact that I have been an insurance professional for almost 50 years. The service that we provide to others is essential. People depend on us. Their businesses depend on us. They're being able to drive a car, own a house, do a lot of things. It depends on the insurance industry. And the fact that they think we are not trustworthy really does kind of give you pause, doesn't it? So although their respondents' perceptions of honesty and ethical standards may vary somewhat from year to year, nurses have historically have led all professions. 80% or more of the respondents believe that nurses possess ethical standards that are either high or very high. And it's usually the same order: physicians, veterinarians, pharmacists, and dentists. So we as a group need to work on our image, don't we? What's the problem with negative perception? Why is it important that we as insurance professionals are seen in a good light? Well, if you want to obtain a sales appointment, do you want to get personal information from clients? Now, with all the privacy concerns and HIPAA and cyber issues, people are hesitant sometimes to offer that information. And if they think you can't be trusted with it, you may not get the opportunity, or you may not get the sale if they don't feel that you can be trusted. Improving our ethical standards and consumers' perception of them can help yield benefits for all parties, because it's a benefit to us as the insurance providers and producers, or company people, or claims people, adjusters, all the various aspects of the insurance industry, as well as the clients. Because if we're operating ethically, they can trust us, they can feel comfortable, and they can sleep at night. Out of this, like, what are some of the benefits that producers will earn as a result of their focusing on providing professional services honestly and ethically? Well, financial risk for unethical practices. It could be a lawsuit. You could be thrown in jail. You could be fined. You could lose your license to practice. You could lose your reputation. And as we all know, losing your reputation, you can't get it back many times. Cases are few and far between of people who have done something unethical or gotten their names out in the paper as being a bad person or a bad entity, and trying to get that reputation back. Especially nowadays with social media, and everything is instantaneous. So if somebody's mad at you for doing something and they post something, and even if it's not true, it gets spread everywhere. I mean, I don't have to tell you about all the false information that's out there. And with AI, it's just even worse, isn't it? You can put somebody else's picture on something, or make a video and it's totally untrue, but people say, "Oh, that's true," and I believe it, and there they go. But if you're perceived as ethical and trustworthy, you're going to have a marketing advantage. Your clients are going to say, "Yes, talk to Joe Smith. He's a great agent. He gave me great information. He answers my questions. I've never had a problem. The ABC Insurance Company handled my claim beautifully." Those are the things we like to hear, right? Not, "Oh, he didn't call me back," or "Oh, he lied to me," or "Oh, he didn't explain my coverages to me." I mean, even if we do explain our coverages, that doesn't mean they remember, do they? So maybe part of your ethical and professional practices is to be sure that those conversations are documented in writing, and it can help you. I know in my career, it has helped me by having things in writing and saying, "This is what I offered you. This is what you chose. Don't come back now and tell me you wanted something else and claim that you were not offered it." So some of the principles of ethical behavior and professional ethics, these should probably be your foundation of how you think and operate your business. Competence, integrity, fairness in dealing with clients, diligence, professionalism, and confidentiality. Confidentiality is a big term, right? We talked before about hacking and cybersecurity and all the regulations that are in place now. Many of the states, especially New York, have certain regulations. The NAIC has come out with regulations. It's constantly evolving because the industry and the technology is constantly evolving. Who would have thought back 50 years ago when I started in insurance and we were just starting to use computers with the green screens and entering all the information, that things could be done so quickly that we'd be able to do everything that we did then on our phones now and carrying it around with us. How many of you thought that was going to happen? So you've got a bunch of stuff in the chat, so I'm just going to look. Ask your client sign off that they understand. Absolutely, Sylvia. And I remember when I was an agent, that's what I did. I had questionnaires. We had because producers don't always want to ask the questions, and I said to him, "Okay, you have to offer them an umbrella, you have to offer them flood, you have to offer them equipment breakdown." I would get answers like, "Well, they don't have a computer system, or they don't have this." I said, "They have a phone, don't they? They have electricity. They need equipment breakdown." So here you offer or umbrella. How much coverage does somebody need? How big is the claim going to be? Can you tell me? No. I mean, that's why I have a problem with some of these advertisements of insurance companies saying, "We'll customize your coverage only to what you need." Oh, really? How will you know that? How will you know when I'm going to hit a bus and injure, 50 school children? Well, is my $100,000 coverage going to be enough for that? I don't know. So, I mean, that's my own personal gripe with some of the carriers and some of the advertisements that are out there, because we don't know. But if you have them sign off and say, "I was offered an umbrella, I was offered flood coverage, I was offered equipment breakdown, I was offered whatever coverage may or may not be particular to their risk," at least gives you a tool in your arsenal when the claim happens and they come back and say, I would have bought that. I would have paid for it. Yeah, Dawn says, "What are their total assets?" One thing too. I mean, it's always a dilemma, because you talk about, well, what are they going to go after the coverage? Do you want a low limit because they'll only go after the low limit, or do you want a high limit because they don't care how much coverage you have? They're going to dock your wages for the rest of your life. So it's always interesting. So let me see if I can move this chat to the side. All righty. Now we'll start talking about these. Take a minute now and think about, if you haven't already, what the characteristics of each of these principles might be. You can either put them in the chat or just think about it for a minute. We'll start with competence. But what makes someone competent or diligent, fair, professional? How do you measure it? How do you measure integrity? Those actions that match their words, understand their job, they know what they're talking about. What concept, huh? Competent, their knowledge and ability to explain. Because sometimes that's half the thing, half the opposite is you can't explain yourself so somebody understands you. What's the point? Never promise what you can't deliver. Follows through, education, knowledge. So a lot of the things on the same theme, skills, knowledge, qualifications. When you talk about the ethics applicable to insurance producers, competence requires both technical knowledge and sales skills. You have to understand the features and limitations of the products being sold and the benefits that are provided by those products, and maybe what the options are and what the pros and cons are of some of those different options. Yeah, some of the skills you need. You can get all the client information that's needed to assess the actual risk and assess the actual exposure, and hopefully only do it in one time, not keep going back. Oh, I forgot this, I forgot that, I forgot this, I forgot that. Because that doesn't make you look competent or professional, does it? Interpersonal skills. Be able to communicate and recommend and help and illustrate suitable products to people so that you can meet their needs and satisfy what their objectives are, because what they want may be different than what you think they should have. Maybe they only want to be covering the value of the building and not the replacement costs, because if it burns down, they're not going to want to rebuild. They're going to move to Florida with everybody else that's moving to Florida. You're also supposed to should commit yourselves to continually increasing knowledge and skills through ongoing education efforts. And obviously, those of us who are licensed producers do this continually. We do our ethics every 2 years. When you first become a producer, you do your flood coverage, and you have a certain number of required credits each year. In many states, it's 24. Some states, it's different. And that's why we became a certified provider, to be able to offer this to our clients and others who are not our clients. Shout out to Mississippi. I think we've got about 25 people. I think every Farm Bureau employee in Mississippi was registered for this class. So ethical principle of competence prohibits an insurance producer from providing services in areas outside his or her expertise or legal authority. I've got a slide on here later about don't pretend to be an accountant or a lawyer or a tax attorney unless you actually have those credentials, because it may come back to bite you. It's fine to offer a recommendation of somebody else who can provide that, but be careful if you present yourself as someone who has those qualifications. And it's unethical, and it could also be illegal, which we don't want to do anything illegal. We don't want to go to jail. Now we'll talk about integrity. Can anybody come up with any other thoughts besides honesty, candor, and client's interest foremost? Anything that you would think would apply? Writing skills. Yeah, somebody said writing skills is a good thing. Back on the competence. Great. Be as good as your word. So the second important ethical principle we're talking today about is integrity. Some of the things you might hear when you talk about somebody being integrity is honesty, to tell the truth. They're unbiased or try to be unbiased. They're moral, objective, candid, honorable, and trustworthy. We usually ascribe a broad range of attributes and characteristics to someone we consider as having integrity. When we think about it in terms of ethical principles, we mean things like honesty, candor, and consistently putting the interests of the client ahead of their own, because that's part of the whole insurance process. It's not, okay, where can I get the biggest commission? Or, oh, can I churn these accounts because my company is going to give me a vacation or a gift for running so many bops this month. And back when I was an agent, I remember that they would have contests. You sell so many bops, somebody would get to go on a cruise. So you're canceling the policies and rewriting with somebody else, which may not have been the best for that client. You see that oftentimes in life insurance and annuities and things like that people really don't understand most of the time. And they're sold things, and when their policies are canceled, they could be in big trouble because there are things like contestability clauses and suicide clauses and things that are going to kick in all over again if you change your policy. And somebody who's unethical and doesn't have integrity is going to do that because they make a lot more money on a new policy than they do on a renewal. I mean, that's kind of why you see a lot of churning in the in life insurance industry, salespeople, because they get burned out. They sell to everybody they know and all their friends, and they've run out of contacts and run out of potential clients. So they move on to do something else. Maybe they're going to sell used cars next. Who knows? And some of the people are very good at that, and they understand what's involved and what's the value of an annuity, and do you need disability coverage, and do you need short long-term care coverage, all those items that people don't understand, but they probably need to think about sooner rather than later. Okay. So it's important to keep in mind that clients place considerable trust in the recommendation and products provided by insurance producers because nobody understands insurance. I'm sure we're all guilty too of not having read our policies. It sits in the envelope when it comes in, and hopefully you should be reviewing it to make sure you've got coverage that you need and that the exposures that you have. If you've taken on you put a pool in, or you've got a trampoline, or you started a home business, that all these things are taken into account when you have your insurance policy. Because after the claim it's too late. When you have $50,000 worth of business equipment in your garage, and you have a fire, and you didn't tell anybody about it, it could be a problem for you and your agent, because if they didn't ask, they could be brought in. The source of trust is the client's belief in the integrity of the insurance producer. So there are other important implications. So we have a lot of newbies here today. Welcome to those of you who are new to MSO. We hope you enjoy your day, even though ethics is probably not the most exciting class you might want to start with. But we have other really good ones coming. Insurance producers are ethically prohibited from engaging in any act that is dishonest, deceitful, or fraudulent in connection with providing their professional services. Their acts are unethical, whether or not the client even gets any harm. So it doesn't matter if there was a bad result. The act itself is illegal. They're under a mandate to correct any client misunderstanding about the services that are provided. If you don't correct the client misunderstanding, that's unethical. They don't understand what their deductible is. I know in personal lines, the wind deductibles have traditionally been confusing to people. Is it a percentage? Okay, when does the wind deductible or hurricane deductible come in? Are they same? Are they different? Is it a percentage of the loss? Is it a percentage of the coverage? And I remember when Superstorm Sandy hit years ago, and as it was coming to the coast, I lived in New Jersey at the time, and it was coming to the coast, and it was right on the verge of either being a tornado, of a hurricane, or a storm. And the tropical storm, before it got to New Jersey, was what happened. So that my wind damage to my roof, my deductible was a lot smaller because it was just a plain deductible as opposed to a hurricane deductible. Those kind of things come in handy when somebody if they've got a $10,000 hurricane deductible and a $1,000 standard deductible. They certainly want to know what the parameters are. We've had a bunch of tornadoes in the U.S. this past week. You need to know what's your wind deductible. How are you covered? What's the difference? It makes thousands and thousands of dollars of difference in many cases. And if you haven't explained it properly to the insured and cannot prove that you explained it properly to the insured, there could be a lawsuit. Producers make commissions from many sales. This could be seen as a conflict of interest because this company gives me 20% and this company gives me 10%, or whatever the numbers are. Because that company has given you 20%, there may be a reason you're getting a higher commission. Their coverage may not be as good. Their deductibles may be higher. So if you don't explain the differences to your client, that could raise a problem. You don't have to disclose the commissions to the client, but you just need to know that that's something, because they're saying that insurance producers are presenting themselves as advocates for the sale of insurance products, and people know that you're getting paid somehow for selling these policies. Okay, we've got a bunch of chat stuff. Let me look at them. Ice storm in Nashville. Yep. All kinds of crazy stuff. I mean, it was a long time before some of our people on this call actually got power back after the Tennessee issues. Other conflicts of interest do need to be disclosed. If you get a personal benefit and don't disclose it, if its receipt could adversely affect your professional judgment or recommendation. As I said before, if I'm getting a cruise because I'm selling XYZ's insurance policy, maybe you need to tell them. It's required, even though the receipt may have had no impact on what the benefits to the client would be, or no actual harm to the client. Insurance producer needs to be honest and candid, because you're trying to provide your professional services with integrity. And this applies to all your communication between the producer and the client. It's more than just avoiding telling the client a lie. You cannot communicate any information that's false or misleading, whether it's done directly or indirectly. Say, oh, it doesn't matter what your motor vehicle records are, that's not going to matter. And then the person gets a cancellation notice because they checked the records. And now the person has no coverage, where they had coverage before, and now they can't get it back again because of the claim history. So if it's done directly or indirectly, if it's about your qualifications, if you say, oh, you've got a CPCU and you don't have a CPCU, you say you're licensed, you say you've a licensed broker, you're saying whatever the qualifications you're saying you have, you're showing it on your business card, you're showing it on your stationery, you're showing it on the proposal, needs to be accurate. You may not be licensed to sell certain products. And if a failure to disclose might mislead the client, you could be in trouble for that. So, next, we'll talk about fairness. Do we have any ideas about what fairness means? Fairness, impartiality, intellectual honesty, and transparency. Let's see what we've got in the chat. Treat everyone the same. Being impartial. That's treating everyone the same. So you guys get it. You understand. Principle of fairness imposes an ethical duty on insurance producers in the delivery of professional services to act impartially and with intellectual honesty and transparency. Let's talk about the requirements. Impartiality does not mean producers are required to treat all clients the same, because all clients are not the same. It's not one size fits all. Not everybody needs the same coverages. Not everybody needs the same deductibles. Producer must act impartially. We're saying they must exercise disinterested professional judgment. Base your actions and recommendations on objective criteria, not on your personal feelings or personal biases. I don't like you because you're a Yankees fan and I'm a Red Sox fan, so I'm going to judge you harshly. They must deliver their professional services dispassionately and free from any bias that may affect their recommendations. They must subordinate their own desires, prejudices, and feelings in order to achieve an appropriate balance of conflicting interests. Intellectual honesty imposes restrictions on the actions of insurance producers that are somewhat similar to those imposed by the need to be impartial. When we think of intellectual honesty, or someone who displays it, what characteristics might come to mind? Pat says, I'm a Steelers fan. I'm a Patriots fan now, also a Giants fan. Don't let people waiting for a response, doing what's best for them, not you. Treating everyone equal. So those are all good. Let's see what the book says. Unbiased displays objectivity, pursuit of truth unaffected by personal beliefs, acknowledgement of others' ideas, willingness to question assumptions, and humility. Someone who is, you might consider intellectually honest might be characterized as unbiased, would display objectivity and show humility. They would render professional services based on objective reality, and your recommendations would not be affected by the bias of personal beliefs. Be humble and willing to question your own assumptions based on new evidence. We've always done that way, or this is what happened. Well, maybe this is a new fact that came in, or maybe this is a new coverage or a new exposure that we didn't know about before. So fairness requires transparency in rendering professional services. What do we mean when we speak of transparency in a social context? And I'm loving that you guys are participating in this. Let's see. Making sure everything's completely clear, willingness to share all the details, even things that might not be good for you, right? Not hiding anything. And this company's A rated, this company's B rated. How's that going to impact? Yeah, maybe this price is a little cheaper, but there's a reason that the price is cheaper. No hidden agenda. Open sharing of information. Yeah, that's all. Okay, so transparency includes openness, communication, and accountability. We talk about several characteristics, including the openness, the communication that accompanies it, and the ability to identify the person accountable for it. Who said it? Who did it? Where did you get the information? Can you back it up with facts? Can you back it up from another source? So the transaction needs to be open. The clarity of the communication that provides full disclosure and to the producer's acknowledgement of responsibility for the suitability of their insurance recommendations. So for insurance producers to satisfy the principle of fairness in client dealings, they need to be clearly open with the client concerning their professional relationship and the services being offered. Say here, being honest, admitting when you don't know the answer, and getting back to them. That's a perfect example. I know I get questions all the time from clients saying, what's this? What's that? What's this coverage? What's this meant? And we've got various different versions of various different programs, and I've been doing this for 30 something years. So my answer usually is, unless it's a straightforward one that I know is correct, I'll say, okay, let me look into that. I will get back to you. And then we cite and we research it with our team if necessary. And then we get back to them, and we've got some people on our staff who are very good at citing certain aspects of the term policy terms and languages, and showing them the specific instances so they can see where in the policy the information is, what the determination is. Because even though we developed the programs, we're not lawyers. Would never present ourselves as lawyers or knowing how a court is going to interpret something or how a company is going to cover something. Because even if it's not covered, a company can still pay a claim, can't they? Better safe than sorry. Being honest about making a mistake. So it's important that you say, well, because that if a company can decide, well, it's not covered, but if I'd known about it, I would have covered it, or it's small enough, I feel I just should cover it because for client relations, there's a myriad of reasons why people might pay a claim that's not covered. Yeah, it doesn't help that everything changes each time you turn around. You have to fact check. That's exactly right. It's things change, regulations change, policy language in different states change because each state has its own requirements. We're currently working on our national footprint, so we have to know and research what the requirements are in every state so that we know how to address them when we file our programs for our clients. Are we ethical? Everybody who answered said yes. Well, that's good to hear. Good to see. Now we're going to turn our focus to diligence and professionalism. What do you think about diligence and professionalism? What comes to mind? Do everything you can to help, time efficient, pay attention to what you're doing, no cutting corners. These are all good answers to be expected from the people that are answering them. I know you've been doing this quite a while too. Staying with it when it gets hard, because sometimes we don't. We've got so much going on, and you just say, "Oh, I want to let it slip. I don't want to do it." But you have to be consistent. Be as good as your word. Consistency, yes. Thank you, everyone. All right, diligence. You're prompt. You respond, trying to meet a customer's expectations, even if you don't have an answer, or if you're in the middle of something else and you can't get back to it right away. Either put the out of office on your phone or your email so that they know when to expect your response, or respond. I try to respond immediately if I'm available and say, I don't have the answer for you. I will get back to you by such and such a time. Or if it's something that somebody else is more familiar with or handles, I will direct them to that person. If you say you will follow up to it, yes, don't overpromise and underdeliver. Following up, meeting expectations. You're prompt and you're responding promptly and you're at it. You're careful. You're checking your facts. You're checking to make sure. We talked before about how things change all the time. Yeah, they do. So last week this was the coverage, but in this program, the coverage is different. You need to know that. Sustained effort. Keep at it. Keep at it. Keep at it. Be responsive and follow up. So you guys can pretty much hit the nail on the head for most of the answers they had. So diligence normally refers to all these attributes. However, the ethical principle of diligence in insurance requires that services be performed in a manner that can be characterized as prompt and careful with sustained effort. Ensure that your client data gathering properly identifies all the important facts needed to perform suitability analysis. We talk about analysis and surveys and inspections and questionnaires and what's changed in the past year in your business or your home. What have you added on to your building? Have you got a trampoline? Have you got a pool? Is your business are you selling different things now than you were a year ago? If you don't ask as a producer, you're not performing your diligence, are you? When we refer to the requirements, that should make only require recommendations suitable for clients that are made. Implementation of client approved plans is completed with reasonable speed. Next, we'll talk about professionalism. We're all insurance professionals, aren't we? What does that mean? Respect others, highest standard, having knowledge of your industry. We are held to a higher standard. We certainly are because of the important service that we provide. Higher duty of care. Going the extra mile, maybe. Trust us to know and keep up with the ever-changing standards. E. Don't borrow or lend money. How many times have you ever borrowed, loaned money to somebody because they needed it? They promised they'd pay you back and you never saw that money again? You make that mistake once, right? And you don't want to do that with clients or paying their premiums or things like that because it's just not professional. You should not be on the hook for their money. Special skills and contributing to success. Yes, like Sylvia says, the new name of this class is Ethics, a Higher Standard. Never advance premiums you haven't received. And even, I mean, a lot of times now agents won't even accept the payments because clients think that once you give it to the agent, that's received by the company. And that's not always the case. So it's best to say, tell them just send it directly to the company or pay it online or whatever the company's situation is. Make no unfounded or derogatory remarks, especially because that you don't know who it's going to be repeated to. Never admit to the unknown. Yes. You don't know when you're talking to somebody, number one, else might be in the room or hearing it, but number two, who they're going to repeat it to, and would just try not to say anything that you don't want coming back to you. Because everybody makes mistakes. Everybody has nobody's perfect, and you wouldn't want somebody talking that way about you. And if somebody's and if you're talking that way about somebody, you don't want your client to think, well, gee, if they're talking about so and so like that, what are they saying about me when I'm not there? Provide requested information and documents and return the client's property promptly. Don't you have some things for an audit or you have things for appraisals, get it back to them quickly and let them know when to expect it. This is kind of mentioned before. Act like someone else is listening or watching. Don't disparage another agent, carrier, client, or coworker because you don't know when that's going to come around, and somebody may not be working with you any longer, and the next day they may be working for another client or a competitor. Golden rule, yes, and another competitor or one of your other clients, and you don't want those bad vibes, and there's no reason to it because it doesn't make anybody look doesn't make you look any better. It just makes you look small. So never borrow money. Refrain from making unfounded or derogatory remarks. Provide any requested information they want right away, and return the client's property as soon as possible. Okay, now let's talk about confidentiality. Nowadays, in the computer age, and everything's paperless. I don't know about you, but I'm not paperless. And I don't know how many of you are paperless, but we were told 30 years ago that we were going to be paperless by like 1990. I love paper nonsense. Yeah. I like to have it in my hand. I don't trust the computer. You never know when it's going to go out. This morning, it was very windy here. And where I live in New Hampshire, up in the boonies, we have regular power failures, knock on wood. And it glitched out today. And I'm like, okay. Well, here I am with the 3-hour presentation I have to give. Let me make sure that somebody else has this information so that if, God forbid, we go out and I have to go turn my generator on, you aren't sitting there looking at yourselves wondering when's she coming back. So just so you know, we have 3 other people on this call that have the PowerPoint and the instructor guide. So you're not going to get away with not having to sit and listen to the rest of the presentation, even if I fall off the face of the earth. So we talked about professional. What about confidentiality? What does that mean to you? No one business, keep to yourself. I still maintain paper on certain things. I think I saw a question about polls. Yes, there are at least 3 polls per hour. There may be more. Checking information, keeping information private. Don't share what you told with others with confidence. Safety of information. Share info on a need to know basis. No, not disclosing information. Yes, you just did poll number 4. Correct. You win a prize, Rose. Admitting to an insured about being confidential. And as we talked before a little bit, cybersecurity. All New York and other states have regulations about how do you maintain the privacy of somebody's data or their information. And not just on your computer, but how about in your folders, in your paper? You've got paper, you've got information on your desk. Is it where somebody else can come in and read it and see it? Could that be an issue? Yep, it could. Lock your drawers. But don't be like one of my coworkers was and stuff all the claim checks you didn't feel like sending out to the clients and hide them in your drawer. And when you get fired, I have to go open the drawer and find all these things. So that was not ethical behavior. So yeah. Own up. That's just another case. Hold up. If you can't do something, say something. Ask for help. We all have run into times that we needed help. We couldn't do it all ourselves. We had a mistake. We didn't have time. We'd spread ourselves too thin. I'm preaching to the choir and for some of you. So you ask, say, hey, I can't teach this class. Can you do it for me? Hey, I can't do these certificates. Can you do it for me? There have been 4 polls so far, Lydia. If you haven't seen one, just make sure you're still signed in and we'll go from there. It's not sunny. It's not sunny most places today. Oh, I know in the Midwest, the weather's gone crazy. Keep your desk tidy with all paper put away so someone else can see this, since can't see the sensitive documents. Okay, just I don't know why you're not seeing the polls because they've been coming up, but I'll make a note of that, and hopefully you'll be seeing the next ones. All right, so let's go on to confidentiality. Authorized access only. Have the client's permission. If you're going to be sharing their information with another broker, you tell them what companies you're going to be sharing their information with. It may be a legal requirement to have a. All right, so a couple people that aren't seeing polls. I do not know. All right, so if you aren't seeing the poll, just please put it in the chat so I can make a record of that. Because as I said, there have been 4. The duty of client confidentiality applies to insurance producers and is a requirement that client information of any type be disclosed only in 2 situations: when an insurance producer must disclose it, when it's authorized by the client. Yeah, I think Crystal had a good comment. If you're on your phone, you may not see that. Yeah, maybe because you're on an iPad. I do not know. I am not a technical person, so. And that may be a good thing to put in our requirements for future webinars if that's the issue that people can have. If you need CE, you need to sign in on a computer. It looks like it's. Thank you, Amanda. She said she was on there on the phone at first and didn't see the polls, and then she got out and went in on a computer. So okay. And Pat says she's okay on her iPad. So like I said, I don't know. You'll get credit as long as you just check in, Lydia, during the rest of the presentation, that we know you're still here. Her situation was, as I said, was when it's required and when the disclosure is authorized by the client, like to make a transaction requested by the client or to bind a policy, or when it might be required under the law. You may be a subpoena in a criminal case. When we think about confidentiality and its requirements in connection with various professions, what professions normally come to mind for confidentiality? But if you're answering the poll, if you're not seeing polls, but if you're answering the chat in the chat, then we know you're still here and paying attention. Then we'll be able to process the credits. I just need to be verify that you were here, and that's how I verify it. So if you're chatting with us or just checking in and saying I'm here, that will work. Foster care, insurance professionals, doctors, lawyers, attorneys, all these are good times and examples of when confidentiality is important. Doctor, lawyer, don't speak to others when you are talking about what you're talking about to others. People talk about your clients, talk about your client things. I mean, as in MSO as a bureau, that's why we have our disclaimers and our statements in the beginning of the webinar, because we're not going to share information. We're not going to talk about somebody else's coverages, somebody else's rates. We're privy to a lot of confidential information because we're doing client specific filings. Yeah, I see you, Kelly. So maybe just like every 15 minutes, say I'm here if you're not seeing the polls. If you are seeing the polls and you're taking them, then it's fine. Sorry for the confusion. I don't know why it's acting up. All right, let's talk about professions requiring confidentiality: law, medicine, journalism. Makes sense, right? Well, confidentiality in journalism, you sometimes wonder where they're getting things from nowadays. Because if somebody doesn't want to share their personal information, their income, their assets, their liquidity, their tax status, it's going to impede your ability to make your suitable recommendations. And of course, it's funny, Dawn, you know that I'm a comedian. So let's wrap up this module and take our break. The benefits you can expect by ensuring your practice adheres to those generally accepted ethical principles that we discussed can be substantial. You can avoid financial risks and risks to reputation that often accompany unethical behavior. And you can focus on maintaining a high ethical standard, which may enable you to build a significant marketing advantage. So we talked about competence, acquire and maintain knowledge and skills needed, fairness, deliver services with impartiality, intellectual honesty, and the full disclosure of material conflicts, integrity, provide your services with honesty and candor, diligence, you're careful and thorough in providing services, and you provide them with appropriate promptness, professionalism, treat everyone with dignity and courtesy, confidentiality, you give access to client information only when such access is authorized.